I wanted to have a conversation today about the Detroit Red Wings and defense. In particular, a few names that have entered the trade conversation. Now, I know what you're thinking when you talk about the Red Wings and defense in particular, if you're focusing on the previous game they played. There was almost no defense to be found in front of Thomas Greiss and Nedeljkovic. You don't allow 10 goals against and say that you did well defensively, but all defending issues against Toronto aside, there is still a conversation we can have about Detroit defenders, and today's conversation is sparked up by an article on Detroit Hockey Now. This was published on February 23rd. It's published by Kevin Allen. The link will be in the description as always. Take a look at the Daily. The Boston Bruins may be eyeing some Red Wings rentals. Now, the title of the article is pretty self-explanatory. We're going over Red Wings guys that the Boston Bruins might see value in and might actually want to trade for. And the list is pretty extensive. I didn't realize the Bruins would have been interested in this many potential Red Wings guys. But Detroit Hockey Now goes out there and lays it out there on the line. So Boston Hockey Now is floating the idea that division rivals Detroit and the Bruins could be trading partners. The Red Wings have multiple players the Bruins may want, including Marc Staal and Nick Leddy. The lure of dealing with the Red Wings is that they're willing to retain salary. Unless competition drives the price up, compensation for Staal should be reasonable. The Red Wings gave up a second-round pick for Leddy and probably hope to get that back. The Red Wings also have Nemestikov, who could also add some secondary scoring to the Bruins, or another team as well. Now, Nemestikov is a different conversation. I wanted to focus mostly on Marc Staal and Nick Leddy, because yes, these guys have kind of been in the trade conversation the entire year. Everybody and their mother, ever since the year began, was talking about, okay, who are the Red Wings going to sell at the deadline? Who are the Red Wings going to keep around? Who are they going to re-sign, if anybody? Sure, there are a few contract re-signings they're going to have to do, but for the guys who are a lot older and who kind of have that label of being a veteran, quote-unquote, attached to their names, these guys are all probably going to be on the move in some form or another if the Red Wings are actually able to get value for them. Unfortunately, for guys like Carter Rowney and Sam Gagner, I'm not really too sure what the market would be for players like that, so if they stuck around, it wouldn't really surprise me in the slightest. But when it comes to Nick Leddy and Marc Staal, these are two left-handed defensemen, both in their 30s. Staal is 35, Leddy is 30. They both expire at the 2022's offseason, and they're both making a pretty okay amount of money. Marc Stahl's making $2 million this season, Nick Leddy 5.5. They've both been in the trade conversation because when it comes to the Red Wings and their decor, there are so many defensive prospects in the system that you could realistically say have a chance of being impact players in the next few years, from Antti Tuomisto to Albert Johansson to William Wallander to Simon Edvinsson. There are a lot of guys on this decor, and so long-term there isn't really any need to go out there and re-sign a Nick Leddy or a Marc Staal. Staal is kind of useful because of the familiarity here, and people like Staal because he's a good dude. But for Nick Leddy, this is his first and perceivably only season with Detroit, where he's dropped off from 31 points in 56 games with the Islanders to 12 points in 48 games this season. Now, he's on pace for 20 points over 77 games, which would be a pretty significant step down from all the offense he was able to contribute with those Islanders in the previous few years. But Nick Leddy is playing on Detroit, so I don't really think anybody's going to go out there and think that this guy has significantly declined because he is just all of a sudden bad, rather than the fact that he is no longer playing on an Islander squad that was consistently making the third round and doing all the damage they were doing. Nick Leddy was traded from the Islanders over to the Red Wings for a second-round pick, and honestly, it was kind of a move that really did cost New York. Plus, the Devon Toews trade, it really didn't work out for them in the long run. And by the long run, I mean like a few months, so who knows if anything can change in the next few months from here on out. But either way, Nick Leddy was always seen as a versatile, offensively capable defenseman, making 5.5. Now he's on the last year of his contract, and he's playing on a bad team. Will the Red Wings be able to get at the very least what they want from any team that is trying to acquire Leddy? And if that team is Boston, would they be able to actually get a second-round pick back? I think for Yzerman, if you're taking a look at anything that is on the table, I'd be very surprised if Leddy wasn't on the move, to be honest, mostly because, as we have said, there's no real reason for the Red Wings to keep this guy around, and there's no real guarantee that he's going to re-sign with Detroit anyway. If the Red Wings are able to go out there and maybe try to pry away something more than a second, it would be an absolute win, in my opinion. You also have to consider the fact that trades that happen at the trade deadline are a lot more frantic, I feel, than trades that happen in the offseason or before the season begins. That was the Leddy trade, the first one from New York to Detroit. And so now he's going to be on the move again to some other team. Maybe that is Boston, who really knows? And because there's a little bit more desperation there, I feel like it would be more appropriate for Yzerman to say, okay, well, how about a second and a third, or a second and a fourth, maybe second and something else, because it's a little different now when you're trading a guy who is going to be a playoff rental versus when you're acquiring a guy because the team that's trading him away needs to free up cap space. This was somewhat of an investment, a short-term swing investment that the Yzerman-led Red Wings went out there and accomplished with Nick Leddy. And if Boston is going to go out there and try to trade for him, you have to make sure that you're going out there and getting a guy that you're comfortable in your lineup with, because Leddy now is a lot different than the Leddy from New York a few years ago, even though there are still some pretty good offensive traits that he does bring. He can skate the puck in the neutral zone pretty well, he can lead the rush into the offensive zone, but as the numbers have noted, he hasn't really been the best when it comes to putting those numbers on the board and putting the puck in the back of the net. He was never really a significant goal scorer since 2017-18-ish, and that goal-scoring touch really did dry out while his playmaking consisted throughout the years. Going over on a Marc Staal, though, he's a lot more of an affordable option. He's also older, which makes him a lot more of a short-term option as well. 6'4", 209 left-handed defenseman as well. And Marc Staal, I mean, he was never really touted as being a point producer either, especially in his days with the Red Wings, with the Rangers. His career high was 29 points, and that was a decade ago. Ever since then, though, he has been primarily more of a defensively minded defenseman, and for the past 2 seasons here in Detroit, he has posted up 10 points simultaneously. Now, last year it was 56 games. This year he's done that in 46. He's on pace for 17 points, which would actually be one of the more productive seasons he has had, assuming he keeps up that pace and gets that 17-point mark. Now, for the Red Wings, this is one of those players where the price for a Staal wouldn't really be too high comparative to a Nick Leddy. There is an offensive touch with Leddy that I think a lot of people might perceive still exists there that would make him seem more valuable, plus he is 30 versus Staal's 35, and also the fact is right here, Marc Staal made himself a choice to stick around in Detroit and be here for another season at $2 million. He was traded from New York over to Detroit because he was making $5.7 million. He was making that for a while, and so to have him become a free agent and re-sign in Detroit for a 1-year deal with the A on his sweater, this is one of those guys that a lot of people in Detroit just kind of like because, hey, he's a good dude. He wanted to stick around here. He wanted to be a part of the Wings, and his mentorship for the other young guys on the team certainly is valued. Now, do the Bruins really need any more leadership? I don't know. That's debatable. They got some pretty good leaders on their team already, even with the departure of Zdeno Chara. And so, when you're taking a look at what the Bruins could go out there and value, if you really wanted to say Nick Leddy and the offensive touch he had in New York is still there, maybe you could try to go out to Yzerman and say, okay, second-round pick because that's what you traded him up for in the first place, and if you retain 50% of his salary, we'll throw in another second, or we'll throw in a third, or we'll throw in a fourth and a fifth, or something like that. Does that make sense? Because my thought process is the Bruins definitely don't want to add too many names that will contribute a significant amount of dollar value, and so Nick Leddy making 5.5, that is quite beefy. If you wanted to say the Red Wings can hold on to that, which they very obviously could, Stevie Y built a team that is really flexible with their cap right now, maybe there is a retained salary deal that goes on where the Bruins or any other team goes out there and they say, okay, well, hold on to the money, we'll give you more. And for Yzerman, this would be one of those situations where he has nothing to lose by doing so. They all expire next season, so there's no reason to be reluctant on holding on to dead money. And so if you're a Bruins fan, let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Nick Leddy and Marc Staal, whether or not these guys could be your answer on defense, the guys you really go for, and the guys that add a significant amount of playoff depth. Is this kind of a move you're looking at? Or if it's not, then let me know in the comments who else is on your radar for defense and or forwards. You could also talk to me in the comments about Namestnikov as well, because he was included in this preliminary discussion, but of course we focused the entire video on the 2 defenders, so yeah, you can bring him up if you want to, but either way, all your thoughts in the comment section below. What would you give up for either Leddy or Marc Staal? And Red Wings fans, if either of these guys head over to the Boston Bruins, what would you want in return? If it's not just the boring old answer of a draft pick or 2, you can name some prospects, you can go out there and label some of the guys that you see value in, but you know, I have said this before, aside from Fabian Lysell and John Boucher and maybe a few other guys, the Boston Bruins don't really have the best prospect pool in the league, so I wouldn't be surprised if you just said, okay, just give us the picks. Like, we will take those draft picks and we'll do our own scouting and our own research as to who to take, because the Bruins don't really have too many valuable pieces. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.